Hello and welcome to a little bit more Europa Universalis 5, the formerly super secret project Caesar. We have some more stuff to discuss today, and to start with, we're going back to England. I know I did a video just on England literally yesterday, but there are some developed comments that I thought were quite interesting, quite enlightening, quite beautiful that we're going to be having a look at. So, without further ado, I'm gonna say subscribe to the channel because it helps me out. You get informed about the game that we're hyped about, and I get a sub, and everything more wins. It's good. Anyway, moving on. Let's get into a little bit of the England feedback. Specifically, there's a good bit that I want to talk about the areas. That's something. But first, is there something representing the Cinque Ports? Could they be an extraterritorial country similar to the Hanseatic League? Also, what about the City of London's ancient liberties? So Cinque Ports are a special building that starts in some southeastern port locations and some additional content surrounding them. I would love to see what those are. City of London also has a special building to represent the ancient liberties of the guilds. That's also really cool. What I will say is, there was a comment asking if the City of London can be its own separate location, but even then, it's too small. You know, we've got that 100 pixel limit. We're not getting the City of London as its own separate location. That would be... Leave that for Voltaire's Nightmare EU5. You know, leave that for then. But moving on. Shouldn't the English Channel be an inland sea, just like the Mozambique Channel? So the inland sea is mainly a galley buff, but the English Channel is dominated by sailing ships. And this is like a very important point, right? The North Sea, that is to the northeast of England, is a ridiculously, like, powerful sea, right? The waves that you can get in the North Sea are incredible. Like, it is not like a Mediterranean. And part of why I'm talking about the North Sea is because it obviously connects to the English Channel, right? The water that from the English Channel if it's flowing northeast, it's going into the North Sea, right? But it basically means that there is a trajectory of water that goes from super rough, North Atlantic into, gets funneled into a very small, let's call it a channel, an English channel, perhaps, and then into the North Sea. That sea is incredibly rough, right? The English Channel is incredibly rough. It is not something that you're going to get galley bonuses on, for example, and it does act more like an ocean the majority of the time than a Mediterranean Sea, right? It's nothing like the Mediterranean. Like it's pretty rough. It is pretty heckin' rough. So yeah, definitely agree with this idea that it should not be an inland sea, for sure. I 100% agree with this. But moving on, not sure this is the best place to ask, but the Celtic Traditions government reform available to the Gaelic and Brythonic court specifies you can be a member of a High Kingship. Would this imply there are more High Kingships than just Ireland, or is it just the way the localization is written? So the High Kingship is designed as a generic system, so in theory you could have one in any region. There aren't any current mechanics to form a new one though, so it is very theoretical right now. So if you are a modder and you like the idea of this High Kingship, you can make a second one somewhere for your mod, if you like. I wonder if Anglo-Irish is in the same culture group as English or Irish, and this is just... I'm pointing this out as it is a good reminder for people that cultures can be in multiple culture groups. So Anglo-Irish is part of both the British and the Irish culture groups, and I think that bears reminding every now and then. Now, as I said earlier, we have to talk a little bit about the areas, because we're given the area map mode. There was a little bit of people saying that, oh, maybe Northumbria should be split up, but then it doesn't, having Yorkshire as its own thing, but then they don't like that it's, got an L-shaped kind of weirdness for the rest of Northumbria and blah, blah, blah. Alright, so there's a little bit of things to talk about here. But, to start with, I really dislike the term, the home counties, for the southeast of England. I don't love it. Instantly, I'm tempted to merge the home counties with East Anglia to make them more evenly sized. I don't have a good flavour name for the home counties or the conglomerate of home counties plus East Anglia. Southeast England feels a bit contrived or boring. I would argue you're going in the wrong direction. I would heavily argue that you're going in the wrong direction if you're considering merging, because I think you should go the other way. You should definitely be going the other way. We'll get back to that in a moment, though. Here, why not split Mercia into West and East Midlands, have Yorkshire and Lancashire, and then shrink Northumbria to just be the very northern bit? So, St. Dave here saying that makes them a bit too small for areas, in his opinion. I would disagree. So, part of the discussion that went on here, and I regret that I'm not going to be finding, the exact comments because they didn't have, responses to. But part of the discussion was that Ireland has 4 areas. And we can go back to the areas map mode here. Ireland has 4 areas, right? It's about 2/3 the size of England. England is about 1/3 of the size of France, which has 18. So 6 areas is, proportionate. And, well, right now we have 5, so maybe adding a second one, splitting somewhere. There was also a really good map drawn up by somebody, which I am very tempted to just agree with and think that this is just how it should be, which is this one here. Having Northumbria, we have the West and East Midlands, having the South Midlands as well. I'm not so sure about that one. But the West County, the home counties, and East Anglia, this seems to me to be a pretty decent setup. I wouldn't mind losing the West Midlands, having, it being merged into various things, like maybe the home counties can get a bit, West Midlands and East Midlands can get a bit. Home counties, I think, I'm sure should probably be a part of it. So this is mostly what I wouldn't mind seeing. But at the same time, I don't know if it's going to change again after this. You never know. If you have an idea of what you would prefer to see, this, or somewhere in between, I'd like to hear your comments and thoughts down below. Leave your comments there. I read them, I respond to them, and I react to them, and I steal them and pretend that those ideas are my own in future videos. Anyway, moving on. The Isles as a vassal makes sense, but the Earldom of Ross makes basically the same sense. Ross and the Isles fought a famous feud over the first few decades of the game. So here's a sketch of Ross and Moray as Bruce vassals to counter the Isles. And this, is, I guess, is a... How do you guys feel about this? Do you think this improves the situation? Do you think that this is an interesting setup? And would you prefer to see this? Instead of Scotland owning all of this land directly, as they do here, do you think it looks better if is it more historically accurate? Is it, because I personally haven't got much of a clue about this period for Scotland, but if this makes more sense and is more historically accurate, I am absolutely all for it. But yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts about that as well. Finally, on the England situation, we have the development map mode that was shown, and it wasn't in the main thread, so because this was a little bit after when I made my video. But now we have a development map mode for the British Isles, and of course 32 in London being the absolute pinnacle of these beautiful islands. Yeah, it's relatively decent. I will say that having played Florence, 30s are generally what I was expecting as my minimum when playing as Florence, but obviously much smaller country, much more densely packed, birthplace of the Renaissance and all that. So, seeing this situation seems pretty reasonable to me. But yeah, that is the development map mode for England, and that is it for England. But we have more things to talk about, including Vijayanagar. I don't freaking know. I was once told that when I said Vijayanagar one time, that's actually the closest thing to how it's supposed to be pronounced. But I'm also aware that I could have been trolled just a little bit because they may have found it funny that I said Vijayanagar. So, you know what? I have no idea. We're just going to call it VJ. So, VJ here, we have a Tinto flavor of Vijayanagar and Indian regional content. So, these flavor dev diaries may be ramping up a little bit. Instead of it being, okay, we've got flavor dev diary for country, it is country and the surrounding region a little bit. If we're not going to get flavor for a Bamanis or an Orissa or something like that, we'll throw it in to the VJ dev diary. That seems like a reasonable idea. So eventually, maybe when we get Castile, we'll also get, Portugal and Aragon on top of that. Although I think Portugal especially might be worthy enough of its own Tinto flavor, separate from Castile. But either way, hello and welcome once more to the Tinto flavor, the Happy Friday, Tuesday, and Friday. Wait, Happy Fridays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. Okay, fair enough. In which we take a look at the content of EU5. So, yeah, we're getting more... It's definitely ramping up. We're getting more frequently, and they're adding more things to the dev diaries. So, I feel like that's a statement. That says something. That maybe says that we may be getting a little bit close to maybe something else. Who knows? Today we'll talk about 3 topics. The generic content available from most of the countries in India. The unique content of Vijayanagar. That's the worst I think I've ever said it. I don't know what happened there. I apologize. And other regional content available for other Indian countries. It's a meaty Tinto flavor. Let's start without further ado. Let's start by talking about the generic content available for Indian countries. Some reforms, policies, and units that are available to most countries, like the Nyankara system. This gives noble estate satisfaction equilibrium. It's a government reform as well, by the way. So you can only have, a very select amount of them, 2 at the start of the game, for most countries. Allow assume fort command, and I will go into what that is in just a moment. Ennoble cost modifier, and then monthly progress to plutocracy. In order to better control the land and further our military ambitions, we have divided many of our positions among Nayaks. Nayaks are expected to care for them, many cities, temples, or other settlements within them, as well as to produce the armies we need to defend and expand our kingdom. So, what is Assume Fort Command? Matt Fur here coming in with the clutch comment, question, etc. Basically, it is a character interaction. It will let the character assume control over the defenses of the target area, gives a defensiveness bonus and a fort maintenance reduction to the locations in the selected area. Cool, very cool. That seems reasonable to me. Both getting the defensive bonus and maintenance reduction, cool. I assume as well that fort maintenance is going to be ramped up quite significantly from when I played the game back in March and April. Because... Wait, no, it wasn't March. March is when I played it in Sitges. It was just April and a little bit of May. Sorry. The time is funky. But yeah, it was super cheap and kind of ridiculously too cheap to have forts, to the point where everyone had forts, even the AI, and wars became quite sloggy, because, having enough cannons to get any bonus on sieges was a little difficult to afford. So, yeah, hopefully fort maintenance goes up, and then, this character interaction might end up being even more of an important thing to have. We also have the Polygar System, giving you extra manpower and levy size. This seems ridiculously good. It is a administrative system law. So our lands are full of smaller local tribes and clans that we could put to good use if we gave them a place within the system of our state. As a class, these Polygar officials could serve as police, builders of fortifications, local representatives, and military officers. Most of all, they could mobilize their kinsmen and provide us with a good source of able men. We also have the Pike System. I pronounced that beautifully, I assume. And it is a levy law here. So maximum tax for the peasants goes down, but you get extra peasant levy size, and you allow pike levies. What are pike levies? Pike levies, pike infantry here, are a unique unit type that have these stats. And while I will say, yes, I did play the game, I didn't really look at what, base generic levy stats are, so I don't actually have any means to compare this to. That seems like a mistake on my part. I apologize. Maybe I should have. But they're the stats. Stats are, here's some stats. The Pike System is a corvée labor system where adult and capable men, so-called pikes, actually that's a late pike, this one's the normal one, are obligated to serve the state as militia in exchange for land for cultivation. The system also has its origins in Southeastern Asia and found its application in many states in East India. So, yeah, 3 types of levies, depending on the age. I absolutely did not need to go to a new screen to show these. My apologies, I forgot that it was here. So yeah, here early Pike, maximum strength 1,000, then maximum strength 400, then maximum strength 1,600. This is a bug. It was pointed out. It has already been fixed, so don't even worry about that part. But they're renowned for their offensive and defensive versatility and their skill in archery. Every man serves in the Pike system as a Pike conscript, which leads to greater quantity of troops in the field, but comes at the cost of professionalism. They are the foot soldiers of India, who are renowned for their offensive and defensive versatility and their skill in archery, and then as the weapons develop, so does their portfolio of skills. Thus, the bows of early eras have been replaced by the modern musket, and their versatility still prevails. We also have elephant cavalry, which obviously would require elephants as a maintenance and a construction good. So if you don't have elephants, you're just not going to be able to build these. Obviously, you can import elephants into your market if that is what you are wanting to do. Elephant is a massive animal with far-reaching tusks and thick hide. Its ability to traverse any kind of jungle gives the elephant a significant advantage in a very present niche of India. We also have the elephant auxiliary, so getting the elephants to carry all of your food for you, having one food storage in comparison to the 0.1 of just a regular unit. Robust elephants are a great animal for the transportation of goods for our armies. Although slower than horses and other pack animals, the pure strength of the elephants allows us to carry a great quantity of food and supply into enemy territory. What I will say is, and this is maybe a little bit of a critique or a criticism of what I played, auxiliary units, not useful, not necessary, not... I mean, at least at the point of the game that I played to. Maybe it comes more into its own later on. But they just did not seem necessary because I always found that having your armies only siege like a couple of locations into someone's country and then, going only, you siege that place, now you go a little bit further, get the provincial capital, and having a chain of supply back to your own territory was just always better. And even if you had, auxiliary units in your armies, you just ran out of food too fast if you decided you wanted to go deeper into their country, and not taking sieges along the way. Maybe this is something that gets changed, or maybe this is something that is less of an issue than I'm thinking it is. Maybe, these auxiliary units get more impactful in, 1500. I don't know. But I would definitely say that right now, from what I played, the age of professional armies, when you first get access to these auxiliary units, they just did not feel necessary. It felt like, I'm spending my manpower on something that is not helping me at all. So I'm not a fan right now of auxiliaries. But again, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that they become, absolutely necessary come 1500. But I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. A building that produces ivory from elephants. For those of you not so tuned into the Timbuktu map series, we're representing African elephants with the ivory resource and the Indian elephants with the elephants resource. So it can be used for units as elephants, or for other economic purposes by transforming it first into ivory with this building. So 10,000 peasants are hired here, which is wild to me. It's a rural-only building as well. Gives you 10 possible nobles, and it costs you a bit more food. Due to their size, elephants cannot simply be bred on regular farms like horses or cows. Instead, we will establish elephant hunting grounds, which will function as semi-wild farms, allowing us to select those elephants that best meet our needs. But yeah, getting 1 ivory out of 0.2 elephants, some weaponry and some tools seems reasonable, I guess. You also have some unique advances, like, well, not unique. It's unique to all of India. But getting +2 irrigation max level. Irrigation is a really, really good building that we have seen before. This was on the one of the relatively early Tinto buildings, so it's got the old UI, so apologies for it looking like it does. And also, probably, I would imagine these modifiers may have changed, but essentially it gives you some food capacity and food production, and it needs to be built near a river or an irrigation that is already it, right? It's basically the aqueduct from Imperator, just not as toxic. The aqueduct is a very toxic building. Not a fan of the aqueduct. But, you know, getting +2 levels of that, because I think, if I remember rightly, it was limited to 5 levels. Getting up to 7, I mean, it seems alright. It seems pretty good. It seems pretty nice. The Sakia is a mechanical device designed to ease the transportation of water to higher elevations, also known as the Persian wheel, tablia, rehat, and taipanum. The wheel is crucial in the irrigation system in areas with little to no flowing water. We have a new unique type of vassalage as well, the Samanta system, with 3 different subject types. We have Samanta, Mahasamanta, and Pradana Mahasamanta. Samanta, meaning neighbor, is the term denoting vassals and tributaries alike. It's a feudal system that has lasted for a long time. While it's losing prominence in the current age, it's one of the pillars of our society and has been built upon for centuries. So, subject strength impact on Overlord is -200%. This should be a green modifier, in my opinion, because if it has less impact on your Overlord, they're going to be less angry, right? Is that how I'm reading this correctly? Less angry if you do not have enough troops. You know, they're I'm stronger than you, therefore I'm angry. That's 200% less. Unless that means something else, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. But limited by the Overlord regarding diplomacy. It is free diplo capacity. See, that's really good. Gives food access, join countries' defensive wars and offensive wars always. Good stuff. Alright, lovely. And subject pays 10% of the income each month. Very nice. Samanta is a subject specific to the Indian subcontinent. They mirror in many ways a normal vassal, as they pay tribute to the Overlord and provide them with military support, but they cannot be annexed until their bond with their Overlord becomes more intimate, turning into a Mahasamanta. So we got the same stuff here. Subject can be annexed after 10 years, after 125 relations. You can build it in them, etc., etc. It is the next step of the Samanta. The Mahasamanta pays a greater deal of tribute, although you didn't scroll far enough to see what that is. You know, the previous one was 10%. What is this one? Don't know. The Overlord can choose to grant a more trusting and autonomous role to the Mahasamanta, turn them into a Pradana Mahasamanta, which can no longer be annexed, but provides powerful bonuses. So, what are these powerful bonuses? Prestige and efficiency of our cabinet. It would be nice if that was a little bit more, clear what that gave. And luckily I have it here. So, can we see the full Overlord benefits for the Pradana Mahasamanta, so the last one? Monthly prestige and efficiency of cabinet +2%. This is actually a decent modifier. Efficiency of cabinet is a good one to aim for. Subject spreads 50% of embraced institutions to capital of the Overlord. He spends 33% of his income and 150 manpower a month. Just straight up, just give him 150 man. That's crazy. That's actually really, really strong. And then for the subject, they get fort defense, discipline. They also get huge amount of efficiency for the cabinet and fort maintenance. It's essentially it looks like a march. It looks like a march. March Samanta. Sure. Very cool. Finally, let's take a look at the flavor naming of the states in the Hindu-Indian countries. So the Crown Estate, normal. They have the Kshatriya, the Brahmin, the Vaishya, and the Sudra. So the caste system is basically in as the estates again. I feel like some people have had issues with. I've read some people having issues with this. There is a comment that we'll go and read, but I don't know if I have an issue with it. One thing we need to point out, though, one thing we need to note is a new icon on the screen. That was not there in any previous screenshot of the estate system, and that is this one right here. That is this money symbol. So, what is this money symbol? There was a thread posted about it asking, what is this? We don't know what this is. And I asked Johan if I could share what he'd, told a bunch of the content creators, because he shared this with us. That is a bribe estates button. For a percentage of yours and the estate's income, so it is, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it can get very, very expensive because it's, based on their power and the crown power, I believe, as well. I'm just gonna go double check. All right, I found the comment. It is currently 1 year max income scaled by their power, proportionate to their income and your own income. So, look, it's real expensive. It's real expensive. At the moment, it also gives 10% estate satisfaction, and there is no cooldown. You can just simply click, but look, if you can get them to be at 100% satisfaction, just straight up with clicking this button. And I feel like there is a double-edged sword here, or there is two sides to this coin, whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. One thing, I can see it being the case that I really like the burgers building buildings for us. Let me just dump a bunch of money into them. Here, burgers, go build for me. I can see that being, I like that the button exists for that. On the other hand, I can see it being very awkward that I can just pay my way out of problems that I've gotten myself into with the estates. Like, imagine for a moment we're playing EU4 and this button exists to give your estates some money. I would use that very frequently in order to get my estates loyalty above their power so I can revoke privileges. I would use that very, very frequently for that. Here, obviously you're losing stability as well when you revoke privileges, so you can't use it in that same way, but if your estates are, like, disloyal, like, for example, the Brahmin here, they are disloyal. The Sudra, they're disloyal. Give money, the Sudra are not going to have much, they have basically no power, they have basically no income. This button is not going to be very expensive. This button, monstrously expensive. I wouldn't even dream of it. Not in a million years. This button, probably not very expensive. It's I don't know. I don't know how it feels because I have not played with this. This is something that was not in the game when we had access. So I can see both sides of this coin. It's an awkward button. It is an awkward button. So, with that out of the way though, let us go and have a look at the unique flavor content of Vijayanagar. There is actually a comment on this as well that we'll get into, but essentially, would you prefer this country to be called Vijayanagar or Vijayanagara with an A at the end? Because apparently it was pretty common to use the A at the end, and so Paradox have actually asked the community to say which one they prefer. So if you have thoughts on that, the link to this dev diary is in the description. You should go and check it out. While you're looking down at the description, there's just a bunch of other links down there as well. You could probably click on a bunch of them, and you wouldn't harm too much. Anyway, moving on. In 1337, they were leading the resistance against the Sultanate of Delhi in southern India. The newly founded Maharaja of Vijayanagar stands strong after the momentous defeat of the Delhian troops in the Deccan, with Maharaja Harihara Sangama and his brother Crown Prince Bukka Raya Sangama leading the fight against the Muslim rulers of India. Although the third try at the apple, Vijayanagari rule has only recently been established, the current situation in the Deccan promises us a rapid rise to power if we can utilize our momentum correctly, as we can secure control over important trade routes between China and Europe and profit from exporting valuable goods from our resource-rich lands. This is something I'm very excited about, right? I played a lot in Europe, where basically my trade experience when I'm trading in Europe, essentially what I'm doing is I need these resources, let me find these resources and bring them to my market. However, I feel like what we've got here in India is more a case of I know that these guys want these resources and these guys are selling these resources. Let me take these into my market and then take them from my market and sell them to these guys and make fat stacks profit. I think places in India are going to be really good for that, and that is something I want to try out. But here we have the start screen for Vijayanagar. They are mostly Kannadiga culture, Hinduism. Kannadiga is also their primary culture. Got a bunch of Telugu, Konkanis, Banjaras, and Marathis in there as well. And there's a bit of Hinduism and Jainism, or there's a tiny bit of Jainism. There is a Tinto talks on these religions. We'll get to that probably tomorrow. Look, it just is what it is. I'm a day behind on all of these. But now, obviously, we have the maps. Vijayanagar in the terrain, also terrain and political stuff together. And I guess you don't get the paper map. You just don't. You just get these ones. I mean, these ones are nicer anyway, so, you know, deal with it. Vijayanagar has a unique policy for their administrative system law, giving them extra tax efficiency and diplomatic range. This is going to be quite useful. The Rajas are the main provinces of the Vijayanagar Empire, which are governed by a military commander alongside a governor from the royal family. The administration is done in the native language of the region, which allows for a smooth application of the laws on a local scope. Very cool. Some unique advances as usual. So we have the City of Victory advance in the Age of Traditions, giving distance cost to capital. Huge modifier. Absolutely fantastic modifier. Very, useful. Especially, I would say, in the Deccan, where there's a lot of really awful terrain when it comes to distance cost. Vijayanagar, the City of Victory, is the heart of our state, and it will become one day the heart of the Hindu Empire of India, which fends off the Muslim invaders. Let it be the beacon of our culture and traditions. We also have the buns, giving extra food production. Fantastic advance here, having more food production, especially in India, which has a kind of huge population. Love that. Our society is built on agriculture in the rather arid Karnakasala area. The buns, also called Anekut, provide our cities and fields alike with the much needed water. And the bund building itself gives a bit of population capacity and food production. So essentially, it is quite similar to the thing that I showed you earlier. What was this? Yeah, the irrigation, but slightly different modifiers. More percentage food production, less pop capacity, but essentially the same. Simple yet effective water storage tank used for irrigation, providing cities with the necessary water. We also have Carnatic music, giving a huge amount of cultural tradition. We must resist the Islam invasion. Should maybe be Islamic invasion. On all fronts, the musical traditions of the northern states are already showing signs of foreign influences. This is blasphemy, because we all know that music is a divine art form that originated with the Devas and Devis themselves. We will show the Hindu people who defend them. Fantastic. So we also have several flavor events, such as the prophecy of Maharaja Harihara Sangama. Ever since Maharaja Harihara Sangama, now that I can say it, it's actually quite fun to say, you should try it, and his brother escaped from Delhi after the defeat of the king of Warangal, they made haste to the plateau of Deccan, where they established the Maharaja of Vijayanagar. Now, with the great Maharaja Harihara Sangama as our Maharaja, we can ensure that our control in southern India extends beyond Vijayanagar, the city of victory. Although little is known about the Harihara I and Bukka Rai's early life, there are several theories as to how they came to be. One suggests that they were shepherds, where a Brahmin said to Bukka that one day he would be emperor of all Bharatwash. The other theory states that both Harihara and Bukka were commanders under the Kakatiya, and after a crushing defeat under Muhammad ibn Tughlaq, they were sent to Delhi, where they converted to Islam. After their escape, under the guidance of the sage Vidyaranya, they found the Vijayanagara Empire. Okie dokie. They get holy balls with the words. Ariraya Vibada. Nailed it. Antagonism impact minus 15%. Right now, I feel like antagonism needs a little bit of an overhaul in the game. Not overhaul, but a strengthening. Make it a bit more difficult. Make antagonism hurt more. Make coalitions form more, attack more, that kind of thing. Because right now, antagonism is a little too weak. So I hope that this is going to be very useful for them. Right now, it doesn't feel very useful because, antagonism wasn't really a thing that people had to worry about in the, 2 weeks that we got to play. Being dubbed the Fire to Enemy Kings, the character will lead the realm to victory. Very nice. administration of the realm. Under the able rule of Maharaja Harihara Sangama, we expanded into the southern parts of India and now govern Telugu and Tamil people and their unique languages. To ensure the stability of our Maharaja, we should integrate these people further into it instead of treating them as distant subjects. A first step in that direction could be by granting them the right to plead in their language, regardless of our Kannadiga court. So you have multilingual court policy, you gain some prestige, you unlock the language of pleading law, regardless of our court language, and the multilingual court for our country, giving extra 3. That's actually a huge one. 3 cultural capacity is massive. You also get some monthly control and monthly progress to communalism. By giving equal rights to the languages of our realm, we ensure the support of the common people and the stability of the realm. We have the Asta Digajas. During the reign of our Maharaja, the Telugu culture has undergone a golden age, culminating in the works of 8 Telugu poets called Asta Digajas. Sure, nailed it. We should utilize this current state and implement a system to preserve our unique culture for future generations. The Emperor Sri Krishna Devaraya ruled the Vijayanagara Empire from 1509 until his death in 1529, during which he patronized 8 Telugu poets called Asta Digajas. The 8 poets, Alasani Padana, Nandi, that guy, this one guy, Holy Balls, Pingali, Sarana, fuck, I can't print, what? Ramara Jabhus Hanudu. I'm sorry, but whatever. Anyway, those are the 8 pillars of literary assembly. The Prabandha age, as the age of Asta Digajasa. Do we have an spelling mistake? JSA, JAS. I believe we have an spelling mistake. Anyway, it continued from 1540 to 1600, during which the court of poets was also called Bhavana Vijayam, or Conquest of the World. Very cool. It gives you monthly literacy, a possible number of artists, and the skill of new artists goes up. Collective title granted to the Telugu scholars and poets of the court. Their own literature influence the artistic direction of our culture and will lead to a new era of culture. So, another country with unique content is Orissa, another favorite in EU4, of course. Very interesting setup with some countries as Samanta subjects. So those Samantas that we saw earlier. So here is their setup. They are Odia as their primary culture. There's also some Telugu there, Bengalis, Sora, Santals, and I'd say much more diverse when it comes to religion, but at the same time, like 96% Hindu, so not really that much. Orissa here on the Bay of Bengal coast, and a bunch of their subjects are seen right there. So they have the Anka year system, giving them monthly legitimacy. Quite nice. The Anka years are a way to document the regnal year of our rulers. Years ending with 6 and 0, except for 10, are skipped, and the Anka always starts on the Saniya, the Odia fiscal new year. That seems ridiculously complex. Why would you do something like that? Anyway, we also have the Lord of the Elephants. They allow you to recruit the Orissan Elephant Cavalry. Horses are alien to Orissa, and the lands here are unsuited to raise them. Our jungles are, however, famously teeming with elephants. In the dense jungles of eastern India, well-executed tactical cooperation between elephants and infantry can be just as deadly as a cavalry army. Let's further increase the size of our elephant corps and refine their tactics. So we have here the Orissan Elephant Cavalry Unit. The elephant is a massive animal, far-reaching tusks and a thick hide, and we've already read that, so we're not going to do it again. We also have Odia militarization, giving you extra discipline. What I will say, actually, on this... Can I zoom in? No, apparently not. I don't know if it's anyone else agrees, but I feel like the EU4 symbol for discipline is slightly better. This just feels like a little kind of cheap in comparison. Maybe the whip is too thick. I don't know, the hand is a bit weird. The EU4 one just kind of hits different. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think on that one. There's also unique content for countries such as Bengal, Bamanis, and Pandua. For example, in the first case, it starts 3 independent countries, in which case, unifying the region, forming the Sultanate of Bengal. So you need to own 44 locations from this group of locations. Cool. And then you get to form Bengal and get content such as the Pandua. The city of Pandua has been the center of Sufi scholars within Bengal, allowing its streets and populace to thrive. With it under our control, we can perhaps make it the capital of Bengal. Alright, very nice indeed. Finally, there is a bunch of content for other formidable countries that will work as regional powers with unique content, such as events, etc. A list of the formables: we have Deccan, Gujarat, Hindustan, Marathas, Mughals, Nepal, Punjab, and Rajputana. I'm very much looking forward to Rajputana. Look, my favorite Indian country in EU4 is Mewar, and they eventually form Rajputana. So I'm looking forward to Rajputana. I just am. I want to play them. But since this is Tinto Flavors already long enough, you have to find out about it when playing our game. And that's all for today. So tomorrow, which is my today, also probably your today if you're watching this when I release it, could be your yesterday if you're watching this tomorrow. Whatever. There's a Tinto talk about Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism. I'm not going to get to that in this video. I'm going to make another video for that tomorrow. And then on Friday, there's a Tinto flavor about Delhi. Next Monday, there will be Tinto map feedback for India. So very much an Indian-themed few days coming up. But we have some comments to go through. So to start with, Dungarino asked, is there a Fall of Vijayanagar event like in EU4? I always thought it was one of the cooler ones. Yes, there is. With our forces having stormed Vijayanagar and having occupied its streets, many of our soldiers begun looting its vast riches. While we can allow them and gain the wealth for ourselves, it might be best to preserve the city. So you get that event there if you are evil and want to go and loot. We also have a big old comment here. Great feedback. The Nayankara system and the Polygars were limited to the Karnatasaram area, while Pikes were limited to the Malabalam and the states of northeastern India, so making them generic Indian advances feels odd. So, related to the Nayankara system, I think the problem is that it should get the tag Vij clause, which is not the case, and very likely a bug. It's being adjusted. So, you know, bro found something wrong, bro fixed it. Fantastic. Characterizing the Vijayanagar Empire as a Hindu polity which stood as a bulwark against Islamic expansion is quite reductive, especially with regards to modern academia. Their cosmopolitan character and composite culture is a rich tapestry. Carnatic music didn't diverge from Hindustani because of some desire to keep the music poor. Oh, well, Pavia, if you're gonna respond to somebody with numbered questions, can we have the numbers relate to the comment? Because 1 to 3 are still answering question 1. Just 1A, 1B, 1C, and then we'll do number 4, right? It's like, anyway. So, related to question 1 still, he has also renamed Polygar System to the one that I can't bloody pronounce. God. Palayakarars. I'm not culturally insensitive, in my opinion. Look, me failing to pronounce something I'm not making fun of these words or saying that they're bad words. I'm just saying I have trouble with them because my tongue is not used to making the shapes required to say the word required, apparently, either. It doesn't make these shapes very often, and you know, it's out of practice at those kind of shapes. I'm not gonna, it just is what it is. It's now restricted to countries with Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, or Malayalam as a court language. Very cool. Pikes are limited to them. About the pike, yes, true, they'll adjust it accordingly. Nice. Okay, so bro had a comment. Bro fixed. That's how this Tinto Talk system works. Fantastic. So yeah, characterizing the Vijayanagar Empire as Hindu polity is a little bit reductive. We know, but sometimes we need to use some tropes to reinforce the meaning of certain content assets and also create some more immersion into the country. Okay. I mean, fair enough, I guess. I guess that could probably be pretty controversial. I don't know. Let me know what you think on that one. Why not call the Odia advance Gajapati? It means the exact same thing, and it's shorter too. Also, it's Odia, or Oriya, or Oriya, or Odia, not Orison. Okay then, they'll check for the best spelling. Why is the Vijayanagara Raja half naked? There's this guy. He is also half naked. Yep, makes sense. And then, yeah. Fair enough. Maybe he should not be. apparently. It's very well attested that they wore very Persian-style clothes with ornate Indian crowns, and it's weird to see Adiyas sharing Telugu costumes. Forward to the questions of the 3D team. About the second, they use a shared graphical culture, which they call Dakani, based mostly on the Vijayanagari culture, clothing, architecture, etc. Similar to what we do with other parts of the world, is we have one European graphical culture, one Islamic graphical culture, and so on. Over time, they want to add more depth and variation to the different graphical cultures, but, you know, that takes time. I want to comment on this. So when we were in Sitges, talking to Tinto, we had a presentation, and I took a few notes. And one of the things that we were told is that there are archetypes when it comes to how buildings are, how clothing is done, etc. Right? And that there are 7 of these archetypes. So European, Middle Eastern, I guess they're now calling Middle Eastern Islamic, Asian, Indian, African, North American, South American. And you could mix and match these. So, for example, in the northern Indian area, you would have a mix of the, say, Indian dress or Indian buildings and Islamic clothing. And I guess Dakani is another kind of thing that they've got right now as well, where that's a mix of 2 different ones, right? But what I will say is this is something really good for DLC, right? Having a DLC come out that adds a new cultural archetype that can then be mixed and matched with other things to make, you know, the most rich version of the game, like, visually as possible. I think that's a really good thing. There was a comment on the forums talking about how the Ottomans are, you know, being hard done by because right now they have just got the Islamic, or I guess what I had called Middle Eastern archetypal set, and the person was complaining that, you know, it makes the Ottomans look too much like Arabs in their dress sense, you know, full burqas and such going on, and they didn't like that. And basically my response was that I expect the Ottomans to be one of the first, or I guess Anatolians is probably more appropriate, the Turks, to have a archetype set added for them relatively early, and that might, you know, that would be fine. And here, yeah, over time they want to add more depth and variation to the different graphical cultures, the archetypes. Fantastic. I am happy with that. Also, you know, show 1 or 2 Bengali advances, and we're getting that. So here we have the Bengali architecture giving large culture building cost, small cultural building cost, and small religion building cost. I have no idea what... Oh, religion building, so, like, temples and such. I was like, what is large culture building cost? So, large culture building could be something like a massive theatre kind of thing, right? One of the 500 ducat buildings. A small culture building might be like a theatre that only costs 50 ducats. There's different buildings, I've just forgotten the names of all of them. But yeah, no, that's cool. That is that's a nice price difference. Mixture of ancient urban architecture, influences of Muslim engineering, and classic Bengali roofs. Bengali style is a unique style used for religious and cultural buildings of all kinds. Due to the expertise in it, constructing such buildings is significantly simpler to afford. We also have the Bengali vassal system, giving loyalty of subjects. During the reign of Delhi, the Bengali people have served their overlord as profitable vassals. The Delian system shall serve us as the foundation for our cultural vassal systems for the years of Bengali sovereignty to come. We also have the Bengali pike, giving infantry power +10 and may build pike infantry. Pikes are a backbone of our military. While other states have the Pike system active and use pikes as their general levies, our state focuses on less but well-organized pikes with sufficient military support. And then we have this that I showed you earlier. Interestingly enough, they also have recruitable pike regulars. Make sure that the pike levies and pike regulars are properly adjusted. Cool, good to know. Moving on though, mapping the estates to the caste is an iffy thing, and this is what I was talking about before. The caste system was so insanely different everywhere. Bengal, for example, didn't follow the full system. Technically, there were only Brahmins and Shudras, both Sat Shudras, Kshat, I don't, okay. And then all nobles were not necessarily Kshatriyas and so on. So they discussed a lot about how to handle the caste system when creating the Indian content, and taking into account that medieval India is extremely complex, they decided to keep it simple and attach them to the flavor of state naming. But they're open to tweaks because they want to favor immersion with the feature, so feel free to make suggestions about which were the most immersive names per country, religion, area would be. It's how it looks like in an Indian Islamic country like Delhi. So we have the Umara, Ulama, the Burghers, the Commoners, and the Dhimmi. This is not only unique to India, they have similar problems in other regions with those societal groups that do not fit entirely into one of our pop or estate categories. But again, we need to try and make this gameplay consistent and flavor immersive as possible at the same time, which is not always easy. Alright, and finally, we have here, why choose Vijayanagara instead of Vijayanagara? Granted, I haven't exactly been going through all the literature, but it looks like the latter is more common. It may be EU4 legacy. Open question to the community, and this is what I said at the start. Would it be more accurate to change the location and country name to Vijayanagara? Maybe. It would be nice. Also, is there any content for St. Thomas Christians? Yes, there are some pops in the setup, and there's a Portuguese event about them. But with that all said, we are at the end of end of my video. That's the end of it. So I want to ask you, did you enjoy this video? If you did, click the like button. Do you have any comments? If so, leave them down in the comment section below. If you have a spare click in your mouse, maybe click the subscribe button. That would help me out a great deal. And I will see you guys tomorrow for information on how the religions of Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism work in this game that we're all very hyped about, EU5. I will see you then. Bye-bye.